Earl C. Ellis says overpopulation is not the problem. Many scientists believe that by transforming the Earth's natural landscapes, we are undermining the very life support systems that sustain us. Like bacteria in a petri dish, our exploding numbers are reaching the limits of a finite planet with dire consequences. Disaster looms as humans exceed the Earth's natural carrying capacity. Clearly, this could not be sustainable. This is nonsense. Even today, I hear some of my scientific... Yeah, I know it's the highlight tool, you guys. This is nonsense. Even today, I hear some of my scientific colleagues repeat these and similar claims, often unchallenged. And once I too believed them. Yet these claims demonstrate a profound misunderstanding of the ecology of human systems. The conditions that sustain humanity are not natural and never have been. Since prehistory, human populations have used technologies and engineered ecosystems to sustain populations well beyond the capabilities of unaltered natural ecosystems. The evidence from archaeology is clear. Our predecessors in the genus Homo used social hunting strategies and tools of stone and fire to extract more sustenance from landscapes than would otherwise be possible. And of course, Homo sapiens went much further, learning over generations, once their preferred big game became rare or extinct, to make use of a far broader spectrum of species. They did this by extracting more nutrients from these species by cooking and grinding them, by propagating the most useful species, and by burning woodlands to enhance hunting and foraging success. I'm going to do each sentence separately because you can use them separately or together. So I'm letting you know right now because you can't see it. Each of those sentences can be used separately. I would not use it all together. That's way too long of a quote for an essay.
Hey, really quick, Ms. Connell, what are these examples of? What are you highlighting?
Oh, I'm highlighting evidence for, in this case, see how it says evidence, in this case for technological systems that have been in history shown to expand with human population growth. Does that answer your question?
Ooh, so these are examples we can use for our article. Perfect. Thank you.
Yep, definitely evidence. Okay, even before the last ice age had ended, thousands of years before agriculture, hunter-gatherer societies were well established across the earth and depended increasingly on sophisticated technological strategies to sustain growing populations in landscapes long ago transformed by their ancestors. That's another piece of evidence. The planet's carrying capacity for prehistoric human hunter-gatherers was probably no more than 100 million, but without their Paleolithic technologies and ways of life, the number would be far less, perhaps a few tens of millions. The rise of agriculture enabled even greater population growth, requiring ever more intensive land use practices to gain more sustenance from the same old land. At their peak, those agricultural systems might have sustained as many as 3 billion people in poverty on near-vegetarian diets. I feel like I could probably use that as evidence, too. Okay. The world, actually, I like this whole thing. What do you think?
I love that whole paragraph. I was just going to say that, too.
Okay. The world population is now estimated at 7.2 billion, but with current industrial technologies, the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations has estimated that more than 9 billion people expected by 2050 as the population nears its peak could be supported as long as necessary investments in infrastructure and conducive trade, anti-poverty, and food security policies are in place. It's a really long sentence, but I like it. Who knows what will be possible with the technologies of the future? The important message from these rough numbers should be clear. There really is no such thing as a human carrying capacity. We are nothing at all like bacteria in a petri dish. Why is it that highly trained natural scientists don't understand this? My experience is likely to be illustrative. Trained as a biologist, I learned the classic mathematics of population growth, that populations must have their limits and must ultimately reach a balance within their environments. Not to think so would be to misunderstand physics. There's only one Earth, of course. It was only after years of research into the ecology of agriculture in China that I reached the point where my observations forced me to see beyond my biologist's blinders. Unable to explain how populations grew for millenniums while increasing the productivity of the same land, I discovered the agricultural economist Esther Boserup, the antidote to the demographer and economist Thomas Malthus, and his theory that population growth tends to outrun the food supply. Her theories of population growth as a driver of land productivity explained the data I was gathering in ways that Malthus could never do. While remaining an ecologist, I became a fellow traveler with those who directly study long-term human-environment relationships: archaeologists, geographers, environmental historians, and agricultural economists. The science of human sustenance is inherently a social science. Neither physics nor chemistry nor even biology is adequate to understand how it has been possible for one species to reshape both its own future and the destiny of an entire planet. This is the science of the Anthropocene. The idea that humans must live within the natural environmental limits of our planet denies the realities of our entire history, and most likely the future. Humans are niche creators. Notice the vocab. We transform ecosystems to sustain ourselves. This is what we do and have always done. Our planet's human carrying capacity emerges from the capabilities of our social systems and our technologies more than from any environmental limits. While that's a really great sentence because it addresses social and technology, it doesn't really give an example, so I'm not going to highlight that sentence. 200,000 years ago, we started down this path. The planet will never be the same. It is time for all of us to wake up to the limits we really face. The social and technological systems that sustain us need improvement. There is no environmental reason for people to go hungry now or in the future. There is no need to use any more land to sustain humanity. Increasing land productivity using existing technologies can boost global supplies and even leave more land for nature, a goal that is both more popular and more possible than ever. The only limits to creating a planet that future generations will be proud of are our imaginations and our social systems. In moving toward a better Anthropocene, the environment will be what we make it. Okay, so I went through and I highlighted a lot of quotes in here. That's a lot. I really want to say again that you can't use these whole paragraphs because that's too much. Point out only the parts that you need. Okay, let's do the second one real fast.
Okay, I'll try and go fast, but no promises. All right. Okay, here we go. This is a rebuttal to overpopulation. I'm sorry, it's called Overpopulation is Not the Problem. Really? By Robert Walker. Last week, the New York Times published an opinion piece titled Overpopulation is Not the Problem. Written by Earl C. Ellis, an associate professor of geography and environmental systems at the University of Maryland, the column dismisses as nonsense concerns that by transforming the Earth's natural landscapes, we are undermining the very life support systems that sustain us. Wow, that's a relief. When scientists around the world are warning that humanity is in danger of exceeding planetary boundaries and causing irreparable harm to the environment and its ability to sustain existing life forms, including human life, it's refreshing in the extreme to hear that we have nothing to worry about. While acknowledging that we live on a finite planet with finite resources, Ellis insists that there is no such thing as a human carrying capacity. Other species on this planet suffer massive die-offs when their numbers exceed what nature can sustainably provide. But modern humans, according to Ellis, are an exception to that rule. Ooh, that's kind of important. Humans, in his words, do not live within the natural environmental limits of our planet. I kind of like that one, too. Okay. In support of that bold proposition, he notes that at numerous times in the past 200,000 years, lost my mic for a second, humans have altered the natural environment so as to increase the carrying capacity for our species. When we hunted large animals to near extinction, we found ways to hunt and consume smaller species. Ooh, that's pretty good information. When our hunter-gatherer lifestyles did not produce enough food, we domesticated animals and began growing crops. When traditional farming was not producing enough, we manufactured fertilizer and began irrigating our crops. And because we expanded our carrying capacity in the past, we can do so again in the future. So basically, this is what it's saying. He's pointing out the parts that Ellis supports for this idea that overpopulation is not a problem. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to point out to you guys right here. Okay, boop. These are all sentences, and again, you can kind of use them like Ms. Connell said. I wouldn't use all of them together. I would pick like one or two that you want to use for part of your evidence. Okay. However, as anyone on Wall Street will tell you, past performance does not guarantee future results. The fact that a value of a stock has doubled or tripled in the past does not mean it can go on doubling or tripling on into the future. In nature, as in the financial world, there are limits to exponential growth on a finite planet. Sooner or later, what goes up ultimately comes down. And many times, it comes down with a crash or a bang. Bubbles burst. So, is there any danger that the human bubble will burst? Ellis says, in effect, don't worry. There's no environmental reason for people to go hungry now or in the future. In Alice's worldview, we are gods who can shape the world to fit us no matter how great the size of our population. He says the only limits to creating a planet that future generations will be proud of are our imaginations. Such a view, of course, is not just silly, it's dangerous folly. The ancient Greeks had a term for it, hubris. The idea that our imagination gives us license to stop worrying about pumping too much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere or too much nitrogen into our oceans is ludicrous. Scientific advances may yet serve to limit greenhouse gas emissions or protect the oceans, but so far, science has moved us in the wrong direction. Human ingenuity is at best a two-edged sword. This is pretty interesting. You guys can pick and choose what you want. Concludes his opinion piece by saying that the environment will be what we make it. Well, he is correct on that account. The environment is what we make of it, and so far, we are making an enormous mess of it. Ellis, of course, is not the only person currently debunking concerns about population and the ongoing destruction of the environment. Jonathan Vast, who writes for the Weekly Standard, recently wrote a book, What to Expect When No One's Expecting, that urges Americans to produce more babies in an effort to avoid a demographic disaster. Just as there is a cluster of climate deniers, there are perfectly intelligent people who absolutely refuse to recognize the obvious. We are taking more from the earth than the earth can sustainably regenerate. Sooner or later, we will face a day of environmental reckoning that no amount of human imagination will manage to stave off. Whew. Those are some powerful words there at the end, you guys.